Welcome, everyone. I'm Steve Savant, host of the Business Insurance Zone, and today we're doing our interviews you can use. And my interviewee, my guest, is Professor Rodney Ballance, teacher at Mid-Atlantic Christian University.
Yes.
Well, welcome to our interview. You know, you've been on my show. We did 5 shows on the complete turnkey project that the professor put together. And if you haven't seen it, just go out to our archives and look at it. It's great at www.brokersalliance.com. Today we're doing a little bit more of a laid-back interview, and our interview about trust. Now, in my view, I could write a little dissertation on trust. I could show the value of it. I could talk about the belief systems, how we cultivate it. But in our business, Rodney, you've been in this business 20 years. I've been in this thing almost 30 years. We know what it's like to cultivate trust from a drop-dead beginning relationship with a client.
Man, yeah.
I mean, think about this. It's one thing to get a referred lead. And that referral, that third-party endorsement, that has a degree of trust, but that came from somebody else.
That's right.
Our problem sometimes is we have brand new relationships, maybe in business, maybe at church, in family, friends, neighbors. They don't know us, and we haven't developed the trust yet.
Right.
So when I think about developing trust, and I'm thinking about how can I do that, what's a good first starting place? Where do I start?
Well, you and I were talking earlier about this very thing, and we talked about guilt by association. You know, that's a term we're all familiar with in a bad sense.
Usually in the negative, right?
But what about being guilty of being trustworthy because you're hanging and affiliating with other trustworthy people? Mm-hmm. You know, and also things such as volunteering with Scouts or with Lions Club or Rotary or some other, some other credible organization that is focused on community service. I think when people see our actions, they begin to listen to our words.
I've noticed even the CPA societies now have non-CPA associate memberships, which of course CPAs and attorneys are highly valued in the pecking order of vocation. Right?
That's true. Yeah.
And so there's a trust factor. I think when I think about trust, I think of my physician. I mean, we're talking about a person who is looking for my health welfare.
Right.
I mean, he's pretty vaulted. My cardiologist is pretty high on my food chain
Absolutely.
of respect, right?
Right.
So
right.
I'm thinking, how can I get back, I know exactly, the 1950s father knows best mentality. You remember Robert Young starring as the insurance agent?
Absolutely.
I mean, that guy looked like he was revered back then.
He was. You know, television back then was a true reflection of society. And society truly respected our industry. You know, you had people like Walt Disney funding his dreams with permanent life insurance, pulling cash value out of his whole life policy with an agent similar to the one portrayed by Robert Young. You know, and so people look to us for guidance, for understanding, for mentoring and explanation. So, you know, that's the way it was back in those days. We were trusted. We took the time to get to know the people. We took the time to earn the trust. We weren't so focused on how much money will I make off this case. We were focused on how can I build this lasting relationship with this person.
When I think of that's a key issue. I want to build a lasting relationship with my client. I have to somehow cultivate a trust factor. And that's kind of what I'm looking for in our interview today. It's what's the trust factor? That's what I'm looking for. What is that? What is that component?
Oh, yeah. Well, you know, in the USA Today poll, a newspaper several years ago, they did a ranking of professions as it related to the trust of the people, the readers of their paper. And unfortunately, our profession as investment advisors and as insurance professionals ranked right down at the bottom, along with such as lawyers and used car salesmen. Whereas your doctor, your educators, your nurses, they were at the top of the food chain, so to speak, in the trust factor. Reading that article really did a lot for me to help me understand why in the world do people trust these people more than those people. And when I began to understand that it wasn't so much what we had to offer, but how what we were offering was being perceived. And you think back now, you went back to Father Knows Best back in the 50s and early 60s, but let's go back to the 70s and the 80s a little bit, and let's think about how, Universal Life. I love Universal Life products, don't get me wrong. I've used them many, many times for clients in a good way and helped them. But so many of our colleagues sold these things at minimum premium while interest rates were high, and promised the moon to these clients that they would never have to put another dime into their policies or whatever. And then we had to go back and tell them, no, I'm sorry. No, first off, that agent's no longer working with us. And secondly, I'm sorry, but you're going to lose your coverage if you don't put more money in. Well, that destroyed so many relationships because, one, they realized that their agent was not there for the long run, and two, they were lied to, and three, they were going to lose something near and dear to their families if they didn't do something else, if they didn't take more action in an area in their life that they thought they were taking care of. So I honestly believe that when we don't follow through with our promises, when we overpromise, or when we just cause more problems for the client, we're not just distracting or detracting from our own trustworthiness, but our industry as a whole.
Well, I think when you consider some of the problems that have happened in product lines for the last 20, 25 years, I don't know if any one person would ever go out of his way to be deceptive in their way. But I do believe that we don't learn our product line well enough so we know the negative things that could happen in a down market.
Right.
And I think some of that education brings a degree of trust where we can give the full disclosure to our client. So if we're talking about current assumption UL, then I'm saying to my client, here's the current company practice, but in a very bad protracted set of years, it could be this.
Right.
And I think if we start to show that, I think that's why people came out with midpoint calculations. It was a window into the trust factor.
Exactly. But then you also have the entertainers who are hired by large corporations to spread a message of a one-size-fits-all philosophy. And they're trashing our industry, trashing agents and advisors left and right, and telling people that only person they should listen to for their financial advice is this particular financial guru. What does that do to us? It totally diminishes what we have, diminishes even relationships that we are building and have built, because this well-known, well-trusted person on the radio or the television, this person must be respected more than my insurance agent who just is in my hometown, because they're all over the globe and people are paying them for their knowledge. Well, how does that put us into a perspective of trustworthiness if this person is saying what we're opposite of what we've been telling our clients for years?
Well, when we see the debacle in those global funds that just went down, and you put Bernie Madoff on the top of that issue, these people and these organizations were trusted, highly trusted. These were highly vaulted institutions that actually fell apart on the basis of not much trust. So when we think about trust, we want to be able to learn how to cultivate it. I think one area to cultivate trust is to come to the terms where one is to associate with associations, like you said, but also to cultivate trust where I can do little things well, and to pick out a general part of my practice where I always have that out on my shingle, but then also carve out for myself a little area of expertise.
Absolutely.
Now, that little area of expertise, whatever that product line is, whatever that tactical issue is, maybe it's a certain area where you actually have an in a certain social network, I'm going to carve that out and develop a trust so that when people say, I don't know the answer to that, but there's this one other person, that is his forte. So I think part of trust is carving out an area of expertise in the middle of our bigger and broader general practice.
Well, when you think about your cardiologist as an example, before you got referred to the cardiologist, you went to a general practitioner.
Exactly.
It's okay to be a general practitioner in our business, but it's okay also to specialize. And when you have that referral from another professional, then that's even more of an endorsement. So how many of us are referring our colleagues, our clients to our colleagues, and reciprocating that back to us? I mean, that may be a way we can earn that trust back, is helping each other develop that relationship by not saying, I want all your money here with me, because if you spend any of it over there, well, that's not a good thing to do. So maybe if we can develop these relationships within our industry and let the public see that we're developing relationships within the industry and trust factor, and start referring one another to each other, possibly then that perceived value of what we bring will bring us up from the bottom rung of that trust factor up a few notches every year.
I think there's a unique, and I do believe this with all my heart, I think there's a unique opportunity for us who sell guaranteed and insured products, especially after the debacle of 2008 and 2009. The trust factor on consumers and investors is an all-time low.
Oh my gosh.
It's terrible. Our contracts and the things that we sell have subordinated guarantees, preservation of principal ideas into it, basic concepts of return that are built into the product. Sometimes the actual guarantee and the contractual language is actually better than the possibility of the total return.
Absolutely.
And I think the shock and awe, especially among baby boomers and the ARP nation, so to speak, our age groups, well, I think people are really like, we want to trust, we want to be able to take something to the bank. And if you become a purveyor of contractual guarantees, people are going to start looking to you as, here's a person that sells a dominant amount of packaged products, yes it is, but they're guaranteed and they're contractual, and that is a trust, that's a contractual imperative. I think that's a good way to develop trust, especially with brand new clients.
Oh yeah. A guarantee is important. When you go to buy anything, you look for a guarantee, a warranty. And so why would it be any different in our business? So yeah, absolutely. People want to see what's the worst case scenario, and is it good for me or not? And when we've got guys out there who are just selling the moon based on commissions, but the more important thing to driving new clients, it isn't so much how much commission you're making or the car you're driving or the clothes you're wearing, but the people who turn to you and respect you for your opinion and your thoughts. When you get people contacting you because they're going to go buy a new car, for example, and want to know if you think it's a good thing for their financial picture, then you know you've earned the trust of that client because they look at you.
That's a perfect example, because a person will come to me, and I've had this happen before because people see us on the air, they see us over the internet, and so my neighbors and so forth come to me, Steve, I'm going to go get a new car. Should I lease or should I buy? Right. Wow. I mean, I thought I was in the insurance game. So the trust there's already developed trust. Now they're willing to even broaden your scope, your oversight or influence, because they see the continuity of your practice. Right. That builds trust. I'm thinking one other thing that I want to talk to you about. When I'm thinking about trust, especially people coming into our business for the first time, or a young person that's been maybe 3 or 4 years, and they're trying to develop trust. I remember what it was like for me to be in the business. Oh my goodness. Yeah. Trying to get new prospects, people to respect me. I was so young in the business. Well, should I really give him an audience? There's other people that are far more experienced. Right. Sometimes I have to mentor with somebody. And I think that's part of the trust factor is I have to find somebody a little bit older than me, been around the block a couple more times than myself, and attach myself as an associate to a person that already has a fiduciary moniker in the market called trust.
Right. Well, be careful. I remember back to the days when I got into the industry, and my manager who was training me, first appointments ever, never been in the business whatsoever, he took me out, he said, son, you'll know when you're a professional when you can design an entire financial plan for somebody using one sheet of a legal pad right there at the kitchen table with them. Basically what he was telling me was we can how much life insurance they need so we can sell them with one page. Man, I mean, that in and of itself, it just detracts so much from what we're trying to accomplish, because those days are gone, and to sit there and portray yourself as a professional when you're all you're doing is finding out what you can sell these folks, that's the wrong way to go.
When you think about trust factor, the trust factor of having a new relationship with a new client is based on somehow they bought something you said early on. It's a first contact interview, it's a first contact mailer, maybe it's a first contact email. Whatever the first contact is, what are some of the top producers? And I saw one common thread. I saw kind of a common thread or commonality that are in all these first contact issues, and they say, I may not be a fit for you, I'm not a fit for everyone, but I would like to have an opportunity to tell you what I can do, and I'd like to listen to your story to see if we're a fit. Right. A client likes an interview, and I'll end with this. Corporate courtship, it's an art. It's like dating your client. It's like a blind date, getting a referral letter. We have to learn what it's like. We have to build trust. Why remember my first time? I went on a date, and I took my first date out when I was 16 years old, and that parent looked at me, can I trust this boy?
There you go.
And so we have to develop trust. It's a courtship issue. Last thoughts?
Well, just do the best you can. Let people see your life through you before you go telling them about it. If they see trustworthy things in your life, they'll listen to trustworthy things from your mouth.
Excellent. This is Steve Savant for Interviews You Can Use with Rodney Ballance.